South Africa woke up on May 9, 2024, to a changed political landscape. Gone were the days of the ANC's absolute rule. For the first time in its democratic history, South Africa had a coalition government. The people had spoken, giving the ANC just 40% of the vote. Was this a fresh start or a recipe for disaster? Only time would tell. The Democratic Alliance, long the official opposition, found themselves in the unfamiliar role of kingmaker. They chose to form a coalition with smaller parties like the Inkatha Freedom Party and the Patriotic Alliance. This unlikely alliance brought with it a glimmer of hope for change. Could they deliver on the promise of a brighter future? The excitement of this new era was short-lived. The cracks started to show almost immediately. The coalition partners, united in their opposition to the ANC, struggled to find common ground on key issues. The honeymoon was over before it began. This fragile alliance faced an uphill battle from the get-go. The economy was in dire straits, unemployment was sky-high, and the energy crisis, symbolized by the dreaded load shedding, continued to cripple the nation. The stage was set for a tumultuous period in South Africa's history. The first major test for the coalition government came with the 2025 budget. The economy was in freefall. Tough decisions needed to be made, but the coalition partners couldn't agree on how to proceed. The result? An embarrassing budget impasse that dragged on for months. At the heart of the dispute was a proposed VAT increase. The DA argued it was necessary to stabilize the economy. The IFP, fearing the impact on the poor, vehemently opposed it. The smaller parties, eager to flex their newfound muscle, flip-flopped back and forth. Parliament descended into chaos. Two budget proposals were tabled, one in February and another in March. Both were shot down. The economy, starved of direction and certainty, continued its downward spiral. Businesses held back on investment. The rand tumbled against the dollar. The people, already struggling to make ends meet, grew increasingly disillusioned. The budget impasse was a symptom of a deeper problem, the coalition's inability to work together. They had come together to oust the ANC, but they had no clear plan for what to do next. South Africa was in uncharted territory, and the ship of state was drifting aimlessly. South Africa's economic woes are nothing new. For years, the country has been plagued by low growth, high unemployment, and crippling inequality. But the situation has become particularly dire in recent years. The economy grew by a measly 0.6% in 2023, followed by an anemic 0.7% in 2024. The COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine exacerbated existing problems. Unemployment is a ticking time bomb. The official figure stands at a staggering 32%, but the real number is likely much higher. Youth unemployment is a crisis within a crisis, hovering around 45.5%. Millions of young people are trapped in a cycle of poverty and despair. They are easy prey for populist politicians and criminal gangs. Poverty remains a stain on the nation's conscience. More than half of the population, a staggering 55.5%, lives below the poverty line. The gap between rich and poor is one of the widest in the world. South Africa's Gini coefficient, a measure of income inequality, stands at a shocking 63. The cost of living is skyrocketing, driven by rising food and fuel prices. Eskom's relentless electricity price hikes, including a whopping 12.7% increase for 2025 to 2026, are adding to the burden on households and businesses alike. The situation is becoming increasingly untenable. No discussion of South Africa's woes would be complete without mentioning Eskom, the beleaguered state-owned power utility. Eskom's woes are legendary. For years, it has been plagued by corruption, mismanagement, and a lack of investment. The result, load shedding, the now infamous rolling blackouts that have become a way of life in South Africa. Load shedding first reared its ugly head in 2007. It has become progressively worse over the years, reaching crisis levels in 2023 with a record 91 days of blackouts. Despite promises of improvement, load shedding resumed in early 2025, plunging the country back into darkness. Eskom's problems are deeply rooted. The utility is saddled with massive debt, aging infrastructure, and a bloated workforce. Its finances are opaque, and allegations of corruption are rife. The government has announced plans to restructure Eskom, splitting it into 3 separate companies. But many are skeptical that this will be enough to solve the problem. Eskom's woes have a devastating impact on the economy. Businesses are forced to close their doors during load shedding, costing the country billions of rands in lost productivity. The lack of reliable electricity is a major deterrent to foreign investment. Eskom is not just a power utility, it is a symbol of South Africa's deeper problems. Section 5. Boiling over, social unrest on the rise. South Africa is a powder keg of social tension. The country's history of colonialism, apartheid and inequality has left deep scars. The current economic crisis, coupled with the government's perceived inability to address it, is pushing people to the brink. Crime rates are soaring, fueled by poverty, unemployment and a sense of hopelessness. South Africa has one of the highest murder rates in the world. Violent crime is a daily reality for many citizens. Protests have become increasingly common. People are taking to the streets to voice their anger over a range of issues, from service delivery failures to the rising cost of living. The government's response has been heavy-handed at times, further inflaming tensions. The social fabric of South Africa is fraying. The sense of shared purpose that characterized the post-apartheid era is fading. People are losing faith in the government and in each other. The country is at a crossroads. Section 6. The long shadow of apartheid. It is impossible to understand South Africa's current predicament without acknowledging the legacy of apartheid. For decades, the white minority government enforced a brutal system of racial segregation and oppression. Black South Africans were denied basic human rights, confined to impoverished townships, and subjected to systematic discrimination. The transition to democracy in 1994 was a moment of great hope. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, chaired by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, was established to investigate the crimes of apartheid and promote healing. The TRC offered amnesty to perpetrators in exchange for full disclosure. It also recommended reparations for victims. However, the TRC's work remains unfinished. Many perpetrators of apartheid-era crimes have yet to be held accountable. Reparations have been inadequate. The economic disparities created by apartheid persist. The wounds of the past continue to fester. Section 7. A cast of characters from Ramaphosa to the streets. South Africa's political landscape is populated by a colourful cast of characters. President Cyril Ramaphosa, once hailed as a beacon of hope, has seen his popularity plummet amid accusations of corruption and inaction. The $580,000 stolen from his farm in 2020 while he was president cast a long shadow over his presidency. The official opposition, the Democratic Alliance, led by John Steenhuisen, has been accused of being out of touch with the concerns of ordinary South Africans. The DA's focus on fiscal austerity and its perceived closeness to big business have alienated many potential voters. The economic freedom fighters, led by the firebrand Julius Malema, have capitalized on the growing anger and frustration among young people. The EFF's radical rhetoric and calls for the expropriation of land without compensation have resonated with those who feel left behind. But the real story of South Africa is not playing out in the halls of Parliament. It is happening on the streets, in the townships and in the rural areas. It is the story of ordinary South Africans struggling to make ends meet, demanding better from their leaders. Section 8. The future hangs in the balance. South Africa stands at a crossroads. The country faces a multitude of challenges, from a stagnant economy and an energy crisis to soaring crime rates and social unrest. The coalition government, formed with so much hope and promise, has so far failed to deliver. The future is uncertain. If the government fails to address the root causes of the country's problems, South Africa risks sliding further into chaos and instability. But there is still hope. South Africans are resilient people. They have overcome great adversity in the past. The country needs strong and decisive leadership, a renewed commitment to social justice, and a willingness to confront the ghosts of the past. Only then can South Africa live up to its potential as a rainbow nation.